The BBC chairman Richard Sharp has resigned. Sharp called it quits over the loan facilitation case involving the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Reportedly, Sharp had failed to properly disclose his involvement in the facilitation of the loan. Now, according to reports, a committee report investigating the matter found that Richard Sharp had breached the governance code for public appointments. Sharp says that the breach was inadvertent and not deliberate on his part. Confirming his resignation, Sharp further added that the breach does not necessarily invalidate an appointment, adding that non-disclosure was an oversight, and he's now apologised on this issue and has also stepped down.
I would like to thank Adam Heppenstall and his team for the diligence and professionalism they have shown in compiling today's report. Mr. Heppenstall's view is that while I did breach the governance code for public appointments, he states very clearly that a breach does not necessarily invalidate an appointment. Indeed, I've always maintained the breach was inadvertent and not material, which the facts he lays out substantiate. The Secretary of State has consulted with the BBC board, who support that view.
The former chairman of the BBC further added that he did not play any role whatsoever in the facilitation, arrangement or financing of the said loan for the former British Prime Minister. However, he's accepted that he should have in fact disclosed his role in setting up a meeting between the Cabinet Secretary Simon Case and businessman Sam Blitt. Reportedly, the businessman had offered Johnson financial help over $964,000. The committee report has further said that Richard Sharp's decisions, firstly, to become involved in the facilitation of a loan to the then Prime Minister and at the same time applying for a job in Johnson's administration while failing to disclose this material relationship, were significant errors of judgment, undermining the confidence of public appointments process.
I'm too honoured, and you do me too much.
The Sharp also thanked the BBC for the opportunity, adding that it was actually an honour to be the chair of the BBC. The Sharp will remain in the chair till June, when his successor is expected to be appointed.
I have decided that it is right to prioritise the interest of the BBC. I feel that this matter may well be a distraction from the corporation's good work were I to remain in post until the end of my term. I have, therefore, this morning, resigned as a BBC chair to the Secretary of State and to the board. It was proposed to me that I stay on as chair until the end of June, while the process to appoint my successor is undertaken, and I will, of course, do that in the interests of the corporation's stability and continuity.
To give us more insights in terms of what's exactly happened in this particular case, we're being joined in by our correspondent Alex Isat, who's been tracking the story very closely for us, and she's joining us from London. Now, Alex, this was something that, over the course of the last few weeks, ever since this case, of course, had been talked about a lot. This was almost expected. Tell us about what exactly resulted in the chairman of the BBC from stepping down.
Yes, we have been following this investigation for a while, but of course this report by Adam Heppenstall has come out today. Now, the interesting part of this report really does talk about how Richard Sharp was appointed as BBC chair. And from what it says in that report, it's suggesting that although he didn't facilitate that £800,000 loan for Boris Johnson, the fact is that he put together Sam Blyth and Boris Johnson to go forward and get that loan, and while that was in discussions, he mentioned to Boris Johnson that he was looking to apply to become BBC chair, and then following this facilitation he went on and became the BBC chair. So that is really the crux of this issue here, and of course the report did say that it wasn't done on purpose, and there was nothing that Richard Sharp had done to try and negotiate with Boris Johnson to get the position. However, that conversation that happened before he became chair still was ongoing, and that is what the issue is here, that a lot of people are now calling out this cronyism within the BBC from the Conservative Party. Now, going forward, Richard Sharp did also say that he didn't actually have to resign, but he has decided to step down so that the BBC wouldn't take any further flack, which unfortunately is not going to stop a lot of those from opposing parties, and as we've seen on social media as well, calling out who exactly is in charge charge of the BBC and why they're allowing this appointed role to go to someone who has worked very closely with the government. Not only did Boris Johnson speak to Richard Sharp, but also Rishi Sunak had worked with him previously in the past, although we are not suggesting that Rishi Sunak had anything to do with this role.
All right, very interesting there. Thank you very much indeed, Alex Azad, for joining us and getting us all those in detail. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.